Wait!
Fire Pro Wrestling is a wrestling game the same way Monopoly is a game about real estate. That is to say, wrestling is a big part of what makes it so much fun, but there's a whole lot more to this game than just suplexes and clotheslines. Released to the PlayStation 2 in 2007, Fire Pro Wrestling Returns brought the long-running Fire Pro Wrestling series over for a rare stateside release. This franchise has been running the ropes in Japan for more than 20 years now, and when you play Fire Pro Wrestling Returns, it's easy to see why. I mean, if you like wrestling, I gotta tell you, this game's gonna blow your freaking mind. So Fire Pro Wrestling Returns is deliberately old school in its appearance. The game uses really simple 2D graphics, but they're really clean and it works really well. The characters have this charming old school look, and it translates well to what the rest of the game's trying to do, which basically is give you an entire wrestling world to play with. I mean, it sounds crazy to even say this, but there are more than 300 wrestlers in Fire Pro Wrestling Returns. You have a bunch from actual wrestling promotions from all over the world, and there's even knockoffs of a few WWE wrestlers. If you still can't find a worthy grappler out of the hundreds included, that's where the game's customization comes in. One of the coolest features in Fire Pro Wrestling Returns is its character designer, this pretty elaborate tool that allows you to add several hundred more characters to the Fire Pro Wrestling roster. It's also fully featured enough to allow you to create really accurate versions of just about any wrestler you can think of, and not just visually, but also in terms of their wrestling ability. You can choose from more than 1,600 wrestling maneuvers to give your created characters. I mean, it sounds like I'm just making up numbers, like there's 11 bajillion wrestlers in this game. In fact, there's almost too much to do in this game. You could spend weeks creating characters, and you still wouldn't have scratched the surface of what this game has to offer. I mean, you can also create your own championships, create your own rings, you can even make your wrestlers heel or face. I mean, seriously, editing the personalities of your wrestlers, that's just ridiculous. And frankly, I have no idea why you'd ever want to do that, but for those who do, it's there. And that's what's so cool about Fire Pro Wrestling Returns. In terms of content, everything is there. No matter how you play this game, whether you join a tournament or start a league or just hop right into the steel cage, Fire Pro Wrestling Returns also holds up pretty well in the ring. The controls are interesting in that they're timing based, so instead of the frantic tapping that's characteristic of a lot of wrestling games, you have to press a face button at just the right time to pull off specific moves out of the grapple. It takes a little time to get used to, but it's actually a pretty smart system that works really well. What doesn't work as well is basic movement. You control your wrestler by using the D-pad on the PS2 controller, and honestly, that's pretty unfortunate. And not only is that a painfully limiting way to go, but it can also make hitting a running maneuver a lot more difficult than it should be. Otherwise, though, to borrow a line from one of my current favorites, this game is awesome! A huge thanks to Paul from California for sending us one of the craziest and most exhausting wrestling games of all time. It's Fire Pro Wrestling Returns, a game designed for the fantasy booker in all of us.